Bugün günlerden iPhone 13. Değişik bir video olacak arkadaşlar. Hemen başlayalım. Bugün sinematik mod üzerine konuşacağım. Aslında konuşmayacağım. Direkt olarak sorularımı bu konunun en yetkili isimlerine soracağım. Vakit kaybetmeyelim. Hemen olaya girelim. Şimdi İngilizceye geçiyorum arkadaşlar. Altyazı açmanıza gerek yok. Aşağı koyuyorum çünkü. Hi guys, greetings from Istanbul, Turkey. Before I get on with my questions, can I have a brief introduction about the cinematic mode?
Yeah, we definitely wanted to talk a little bit about cinematic mode, as it's just this incredible feature. And as you know, iPhone has the highest quality video on a smartphone, and people just love taking video on iPhone, right? It's like whether they're making fun clips or they're making home movies or vlogging or creative projects, iPhone has tons of features. And this includes best stabilization for filming on the go, slow-mo, time-lapse, and you can even capture and edit in Dolby Vision. With iPhone 13, we now have cinematic mode that takes our video to the next level by bringing amazing focus transitions into our everyday memories or even pro-level films shot on iPhone. And the feature is automatic and easy to use, so like our users can add more creativity in video with both front and rear cameras. And cinematic mode easily works across people, objects, and of course, our pets as well. And just like our other camera features, we wanted the depth of field effect and focus transitions to be accurate and stunning. And you can see cinematic mode in action right in live preview. And you can even add creative controls by changing the focus subject and the amount of blur even after the capture while editing. But bringing this feature to life was an incredible effort, but also a lot of fun. Our teams did a lot of legwork to understand what it takes to make these beautiful focus transitions genuine by studying the art of cinematography. And I'll have Johnny to tell about that.
Thanks, Vitor. For cinematic mode, the design process started with what we've been watching in movies our entire lives. We were inspired by filmmakers and the stories they tell. So before we did anything, we spoke to some of the best cinematographers to better understand their craft. We also looked at many films we loved, from the latest blockbusters to Hitchcock and other classics. And in doing that, certain trends emerged. It was obvious that focus and focus changes were key storytelling tools, and that as a team, we needed to understand precisely how and when they are used. One challenge with using shallow depth of field in video using traditional cameras was that you have to do quite a bit of setup and practice in order to get great footage. And of course, if you don't get the focus right, you have to start all over. Even being off with your focus by a small amount, for example, focusing on someone's ear instead of their eyes, is enough to ruin the story and the emotion. It really takes the fun out of it. What's great about the iPhone with cinematic mode is you can just point the camera and start recording and experiment and just have fun. If you feel like you want a different aperture, you can adjust it later. If you want to duplicate the video and try different versions with different focus transitions, that is incredibly fast and easy, and it's just fun. This ability to experiment is so critical to the creative process. And the best way to be creative is to enjoy the work that you're doing and have tools that let you do things you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. One example of this is that your iPhone is always in your pocket and ready to go when inspiration strikes. This combination of convenience and simplicity, we hope, unlocks creative opportunities for filmmakers and for people who don't consider themselves filmmakers today, but may discover that not only do they enjoy it, but they're good at it. We hope to see people discovering a creative side of themselves and even surprising themselves with the stories they were able to capture. One personal anecdote that I'd like to share is I've had a lot of fun experimenting with cinematic mode. I can start with a macro shot of some flowers and then pan over to my kids playing, then maybe tilt up to reveal the sky through the trees. These longer takes that involve complex focus changes are hard to do traditionally, and they require quite a bit of planning. But with cinematic mode, it's all very fun and effortless. When you see the footage, it's hard to believe that it came from an iPhone.
You stated that we could actually change the rack focus later by editing on our iPhone. What makes me curious is that are we gonna be able to do that on our laptops? Because as far as I understand, you have a metadata that you actually record at the same time, and I think with the help of that, you can bring in the video to your laptop and do those rack focusing decisions while editing.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Like today, you already can, of course, edit your video in the Photos app on iPhone, in iMovies and on Clips. But later this year, we're bringing that same way to edit focus and the amount of the depth effect as well in iMovie and Final Cut Pro for the Mac.
Okay, what happens at the moment when you do the rack focusing on your phone and export it to your, let's say, your notebook? Do you get the raster version or just the raw version at the moment?
You actually have both options, you know, so, and like even similar to portrait mode, when you move your original files to your Mac, all those edits that you do, they are non-destructive. So you can always go back to the original file and make any edits you want. But of course, you also can export a version which has all that effect baked in, which is of course great when you're sharing like in social media platforms or sending to family and friends, so you can then see that video in its final and pure form.
From the keynotes, as far as I've seen, you're also able to rack focus manually by just tapping on the people or the subject that you're filming. When you leave it to the phone, you said that you studied with cinematographers, filmmakers, so that you would understand how a cinematographer would do the rack focus. AI-wise, are you able to teach the phone how I'm focusing, or is it built in only? For example, sometimes you need to do a faster rack, or sometimes you need to make a slower rack focus, depending on the mood. Are you planning to release a cinematography guideline from your learnings so that we understand how the phone is behaving? By that way, we understand how the AI technology works with the rack focusing technology.
One thing we're doing that is really exciting is in the process of creating this, we worked really closely with cinematographers. And one thing that we sort of identified was what you talked about in terms of the transitions themselves. So obviously the focus is absolutely critical, but the transitions themselves are as important to the storytelling as the focus. And so we put a lot of care and thought into the feel of those focus transitions in order to make sure they feel deliberate and considered, and they take advantage of these sort of, optical characteristics that come from the depth information. On the movie set, the focus puller uses an analog wheel in order to adjust focus. And that sensation of turning this wheel with their hands is something that inspired us. And we wanted to make sure the algorithms reflected the nuance and craft that the focus puller was pulling into these transitions. So when we went to develop the algorithms, one thing that we made sure to do was to build in ramps and timing that would reflect the way that they did this. So for example, the way that they would allow things to sort of take a longer amount of time and ramp differently if it was a longer rack focus than if it was for a shorter one. But we also understand that there's a lot of nuance and subjectivity to cinematography. And this is why it was so important for us to allow people to adjust what was happening both live and after the fact, because there's elements of storytelling that only the person capturing this really understands. And giving them that creative freedom was something that we're really excited to do.
Bringing a cinematic mode to a phone production-wise is a superb approach. Actually, production-wise, I know that you guys also implemented the ProRes option when shooting videos. Are we capable of filming in a cinematic mode and in a ProRes format as well? Because that would be a killer.
So cinematic mode is a different mode on iPhone, as you're going to see, right? So it's like, just like portrait mode was a different mode from photos. We're super happy to bring ProRes, and ProRes is gonna work for all videos that you shoot in video mode. For cinematic mode, we're just bringing that kind of new mode for our users, so like everyone can also shoot great cinematic modes on their iPhone.
This question is again related to the professional production workflow. Actually, I read on the web that it only supports 30 frames per second. I know that you never comment about the future plans, but what about 24, 25 frames per second? Especially for the people who live in other zones than the States and Japan, we desperately need 25 frames per second. Having a 24, 25 FPS option would give a more cinematic texture. Why only 30 at the moment?
Yeah, no, I think we're super happy, again, to bring cinematic mode like for all our users this year. And I think it's important to think that, again, we're bringing cinematic mode for all iPhone 13 lineup, right? So any user can shoot in cinematic mode. And I think the magic about this mode is that we're taking all that kind of complication that makes a video look cinematic. Like we're talking about like aperture and f-stops and rack focus and focus pull, right? And all that complication out. So anyone just like us and all our users are able to shoot those videos and they look cinematic. So for us, it was really important to get everyone on the same page and have everyone access to that amazing feature. And in the end, 1080-30 is a very common use format, and it's actually the format for social media all over the world. So we're truly happy to bring cinematic mode in this format. And I hear you, and thanks for the feedback. But cinematic mode, and again, across the lineup from 13 mini all the way to 13 Pro Max is going to enable not just the pros to shoot, but also anyone to shoot their home videos, and they're going to look stunning in cinematic mode.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Since I'm a professional who work in the film and photography business, I know what this phone is actually capable of because I regularly use it in my professional workflow as well. I know my expectations are more from a professional approach. As a professional, I'm always going to ask for more because I know that this phone is capable of delivering that.
And you're right, Corey, to ask that. You know, like iPhone has been used in movie productions, in TV shows all over the world. And like, just not forget, iPhone can shoot all the way into 4K 60 in Dolby Vision, grading at like each frame at live while you're recording. And now we're even bringing ProRes to iPhone that like no other phone in the world can do that. So you're right to kind of ask those and expect that, because iPhone can already deliver you such professional quality video. And of course, we're going to keep pushing this further because it just makes iPhone like a great professional tool, but also great for everyone to use.
When I was watching the keynote, I saw you announce the ProRes and my jaw dropped actually. To be honest, I wasn't expecting that because, you know, before the release, rumors are mostly about cameras, the notch, screen refresh rates, etc., etc. But ProRes, I think it's very much understated by the people. Bringing ProRes to a phone was a very bold move, in my opinion. Now I'm gonna go with a little more technical question. Since I know that you guys are using two cameras at the same time to get that Z-depth data, actually I'm just assuming, is there a way that we or the third-party app developers have an access to that data? Because you could do much more with that Z-depth data.
So when we're shooting cinematic on iPhone, we're using technology we call stereo disparity. Right, so we're using two cameras at a time to get the depth data and to build cinematic mode. So when you're shooting on the wide camera, we're using both the wide and the ultra wide. And when you're shooting on the new tele camera, we're using the tele and the wide, right? So that's what creates that stereo disparity, and we put machine learning on top so we can get this beautiful cinematic mode. We actually already had our multi-camera API available to developers for some time. Like when we introduced this, I believe it was when iPhone 11 Pro was introduced. And you can already see like what developers can do by accessing multiple cameras at the same time. I'm sure you heard about like Filmic's Double Take app, which is great to shoot both videos at the same time. So you can already see what developers can do when they have access to multiple cameras at the same time. We had like other fun apps that can take like a selfie with the rear camera. So like just like overlay you on the selfie camera versus the camera from the photo from the rear as well. So this has already happened. This is already available, and developers are already being extremely creative what they can do with multiple cameras. And of course, they can create their own apps and their own technology to merge those amazing cameras together. Cinematic mode also works on the front camera of iPhone 13 lineup. You know, the TrueDepth camera system can also create the depth map just using the single camera, but we have our true-depth camera system, which provides great detail and segmentation, same as the rear cameras. And this like really changes the game for social media with all these beautiful artistic effects and creating content that wasn't possible before, just like you see in the movies. And using cinematic mode on the front camera also works great in portrait orientation, right? So it's quite natural for selfie videos and great to post on social media in any of the social media platforms. So creatives can just bring a lot of fun ideas, just like kind of hiding yourself in the blur for a surprise cameo, or just like using tracking lock to follow subjects. And actually, there's been already a lot of great examples on all over the world that people are using cinematic with the front camera. And again, you can have fun with pets, objects, and all about the great storytelling that this works. And like even making those inanimate objects was really important to us. Now, if it's just like a half-eaten donut, but like we wanted this to work in all the creative ways for the folks to use it. And even those focus transitions were a big part, what makes like the regular video look so special. And it really illustrates like the stronger creative point of view. And I'm sure you saw the example that we had from our keynote, the whodunit sequence. Like, did you notice that like their entire video, there's not a single dialogue? Everything was told by those amazing focus transitions from people, from pets, and also through like objects. And truly, like cinematic mode is already taking social media by storm. And there's been already some amazing videos being posted by users, by professionals, and actually just can't wait to see what you're gonna do with that as well, because I'm sure you have like lots of ideas already to implement.
Maybe you should think of releasing some kind of cinematography guideline, because you guys used to have a UI guideline. I studied fine arts, by the way, and I was always referring to that guideline because it was like such a good textbook. Such a guideline that would help a lot of people understand cinematography, because as you said, with that donut shot you showed, you could see the power of visual communication there. Without any dialogue, you can actually tell a story. I think you guys did an amazing job.
Thank you. And one thing that is really exciting about the iPhone is that there are people who never thought of themselves as filmmakers, would have never gone and purchased, a dedicated film camera. But now that they have cinematic mode in their iPhone, we're kind of excited to see what they do with it as well. And we think it's going to unlock a lot of creative potential from people who would have never thought of themselves as a cinematographer, but have an opportunity now to shoot and learn. One thing that I think is just really exciting is the learning opportunity, where you can record the information and then after the fact make changes. That learning opportunity just didn't exist before. And I think it's going to help people, kind of like you said, learn what works for them, the stylistic decisions. And so we're really excited with how the launch has been going, and really excited to see what people do with it next.
I totally agree with you, because the trial and error method is a very important part of the learning curve. And once you have a footage and you can just play with the focusing, you can experiment and learn the language of cinematography. That's an amazing opportunity, because up till now, you have no knowledge about filming. You have to shoot many different versions to understand which shot works than the other. Now you have the footage on your phone and you can redesign the shot. That's unbelievable. That's amazing. Brilliant.
It's exciting that these feel like timeless principles. They don't feel like something that is really going to change. Focus and its intersection with storytelling has been around for a very long time. And it's something that spans every range of human emotion. You can use it to tell stories that are happy, sad. You can use it for drama. You can use it whimsically. And that's something that I'm really excited for people to go and explore. It's just been fun for me personally to have an opportunity to go and just try things and have fun. And even the failures when I try something and it's not quite working for me, it's just a learning opportunity. I can easily change it and try a different thing. And I think that flexibility is what's unlocked a lot of creativity for people.
Guys, thank you for having me. This was a great opportunity to have a peer-to-peer experience. Thank you so much. Take care, guys.
No, thank you for your time. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Bye. Evet arkadaşlar, durum böyle. Bu sırada bu sorular bana önden falan verilmedi. Aklınıza böyle garip garip fikirler gelmesin. Kendi hür irademle sorduğum çalışılmamış sorulardır. Şimdi telefonla ilgili, bu güzel arkadaşımızla ilgili belki bir video daha çekerim. Herkes bir çeksin bakalım videosunu. Tabii ben birazcık daha fotoğraf üzerine, biraz video üzerine inceleyeceğim. Ama şunu söyleyebilirim. Bu aletle beraber benim için kompakt kamera devri kapanmıştır. Zaten bugüne kadar da bütün bu vloglarım olsun, gerek bazı profesyonel işlerimde olsun bu telefonu defalarca kullandım. Her sene gittikçe kuvvetleniyor, gittikçe gelişiyor ve ben şu anki halinden epey memnunum. Ama bu telefonla birazcık daha vakit geçireyim. 2 gündür kurcalıyorum. 2 gündür çok heyecanlandırıyor. Bu sinematik modda saç kenarlarında böyle pütürlenmelerin olmasını beklerdim ama mükemmel çalışıyor, mükemmel gözüküyor. Ama dediğim gibi ben bu aletle birazcık daha vakit geçireyim, birazcık daha inceleyeyim. Sonra bakarsınız daha kapsamlı videoyla karşınıza gelirim. Bu sırada ufak bir not, bütün bu video iPhone'la çekilmiştir. Benden bu kadar. Kendinize çok iyi bakın.